So you're considering picking up a fridge for your camping, overlanding, boating, outdoor adventures, and you're considering the ICECO JP40. You want the 10-second version of this review. I heartily endorse it. I've had it for 2 years. It's worked fantastic. If you're one of those people that like to hear the specs, want to see my experiences with it, see the pros and the cons, stick around for the longer review. I'll be the first one to say for a long time, I thought a fridge for your overlanding and camping setup was a waste of money. I've been using coolers my whole life, and I just kept putting it off, not wanting to do it. But after years of battling with ice, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna look and see if I can't find a happy middle ground. If you've shopped fridges, you know that you can spend anywhere on the really low end of like $199.99 all the way up to like $2,500–2,600 depending on the size, materials, brand. There's so many factors that go into it. Now, I just was not willing to invest $2,500 into a refrigerator. Not saying they're not worth it. I don't know. I haven't used one of those. But I found that the ICECO had really good reviews, came well recommended from people that I trust, and it comes in at a really mid-range price range. So you can pick one of these up for $500, a little over $500. And in my opinion, that is a really good value. Now, what really pushed me over the edge to want to pick up a fridge was a trip that I did in July along the White Rim Trail. I've done the White Rim Trail before, but I always did it in cooler weather. This was in the dead of summer in the Moab area. You know, it can get insanely hot inside the vehicle. Temperatures can get up to like 120 when the vehicle is just sitting there. And just battling with that ice is such a pain. It kind of all freezes up over the top of your food, and so then at first you're chipping away at it to just get to your food. You have to rebag everything so that it's not getting soggy and things like that. I also like on short-term trips, if I'm just going overnight, I like actually just throwing all of my food inside of the fridge just from a, you know, ease standpoint and organization standpoint. And obviously I wouldn't ever do that with a regular cooler where I'm going to have ice in there and things are going to get soggy and gross. So to me, there's a lot of advantages of having a fridge, and I have really been happy with this. Now, just to be clear, I have been given other fridges. I have a set power fridge that uses a lot of the same components, but it's just a little bit bigger. But this ICECO fridge I purchased with my money. So you can say that this is completely unbiased, other than that when you spend your own money, you become biased usually. You either really like what you spent your money on or you really dislike what you spent your money on. I found that this hits kind of in that middle ground, but I still definitely recommend a fridge. Let's jump into the specs and see what makes this kind of unique and interesting, and talk about if it's the right fit for you. Now, the JP40 is a 42-quart fridge, and for our family, we found that this works really good for 2 to 3 days out on our adventures. If we want to go longer than that, we got to get really strategic about what's going in the fridge, probably take out things like drinks and stuff that take up a little bit more space and only put the essentials in here. But in my opinion, I kind of had to go, you know, a lot of people will go with much bigger fridges. That's just never been an option for us. My previous vehicle was a Jeep Wrangler JK, family of 5 fitting in that, space is tight, I have to go with something compact. Now that we are a family of 6, we have a GX460, which has a little bit more space, but not a ton more. So one of the huge like 70-quart fridges or something that you could put like in the back of a Tundra, other full-size truck, would be cool, but I definitely don't have that type of space. So to me, this fits really well for 2 to 3 days, can fit all of our perishables in it. You do have to get a little bit strategic and organized, but that's really how all camping is when you're camping out of your vehicle. You have to be really judicious about what's going in, what you're leaving out, and being conscious of your space. Now, just to kind of showcase things, I actually like putting things in here so that you get an idea of what can and can't fit. So let's do that so that you can kind of see how it all looks. So you can see this just needs to be a little bit bigger, and you could fit a regular sized canned soda, 2 of them next to each other, but because you can't, kind of go like that, which just seems silly to me. That seems like something someone should have measured and figured out. But you can see I've got, you know, different cheeses, some dips. I've got a bunch of, you know, I've got rice and beef and some chicken. I've got some sausages down there. Normally then I would come and put like a lettuce pack or something on top of this, and then I carry a dry foods bin for my things like bread and stuff. If I'm going on just a single overnight adventure, I'll even put my bread and everything inside of here like I said. But you can see there's a ton of space in here I can fit a lot more down in here. And this isn't what I would consider to be ultra organized. I'm just tossing stuff in. So you can see there's a good amount of space. If you're a family of 3 to 5, you can go for several days with this, as long as you're, you know, planning on utilizing a bin for dry foods like soups and pastas and things like that, that aren't going to be going inside the fridge. Now that you kind of have an idea of what you could fit in here, I want to talk about what makes this fridge special. And it's the compressor that it uses. It uses a Danfoss compressor, which is utilized by a lot of the higher end fridge companies. So think of like ARB, Dometic, and some of those ones that have a lot more of the brand cachet. Now I'm not going to say that all of the materials of this are equivalent. They're probably not. I've seen some ARB ones that I think are a little bit just overall more robust and sturdy, but also for the same size fridge, you're almost talking twice as much money. So you kind of want to compare that. And to me, what I really cared about is the compressor and the components that are going to work there good. And this is a really, really highly rated compressor. It works well and comes with a 5-year warranty. So you have a lot of confidence in utilizing it. I know there's people who are out there with ARB fridges that have this same compressor who've been running it for like 20 years. So that's one of the things that really draws people to the ICECO. There are a lot of other cheaper fridges that don't necessarily have as good of compressor components. And so you just want to be really cognizant of that when you're doing your, you know, looking and doing your research. So that was one of the things that pushed me towards this versus a few of the other options that are, you know, similar in size, similar in manufacturing locations, but maybe a little bit cheaper. I went with this because it has that compressor in it, which has a lot of reliability and trust. Now, in my intro, I said that this is a fridge freezer combo, and that means that it's both. It can't be both. It has to be one or the other. So you can, you know, ramp the cooling down and use it as a freezer, or you can use it as a fridge, but it doesn't have like a split compartment like some of the bigger fridges that have different dual zones. So I just want to be clear there. Now, one of the things that's kind of cool about this, it has this nice little display up here, and the display has, you know, it's going to show your temperature. You can, you know, obviously control some of your power and settings, and go up and down there. You can change the mode from eco mode to max mode. That's basically just going to be looking at the actual electrical draw that's coming. Now, I power mine with a Jackery portable battery pack. This has been perfect for that. When I'm traveling, this is just plugged into the vehicle, so it's charging. Then when I get to camp, I just unplug it. The fridge will run for about 24 hours in hot weather without running the battery dead. For people who want to stop and camp for a long time, like if you're doing like 3 days in the same place, you're either going to have to go with a bigger power source, solar panel, some other type of alternate electrical system. For me, I almost never stay in a place more than one night. We're usually camping, we'll get up and go do some more exploring, and so we're driving again. So this has worked really well. This is one of the smaller Jackeries. I did that because it fits underneath the Jeep seat when I purchased it. If I was redoing it, I would probably go a little bit bigger now that we have a little bit bigger vehicle, but it's been fine. Now, if you want to talk about my experience with this fridge, over the past 2 years, it's been absolutely fantastic. It fits really well inside the vehicle that we want. We do have the slider from ICECO as well that I had mounted on a plate in the back of the Jeep and the GX, so it's really easy to get in and out, and then when we don't need it, I can pick out the whole system, take it out of the vehicle, and put it up on the shelf. I repurposed that system for my new fridge. You can see from the outside, the exterior, it's a nice hard plastic. It's actually worn really well. Now, I do have the optional sleeve jacket. I've never ran it without it, so I don't know in a comparison of like, is it better, or does it really help, is it worth it? It makes sense to me that the insulator would keep it protected and help it maintain its temperature, but I haven't done a comparison before and after. From a practical standpoint, it's held up super well. You're opening this up and down all the time. Kids are doing it, it's slamming, etc. I've had no issues with the latch system, works really well. The inside has held up really well. The only thing I've noticed, we had one little sticker that used to be right there that has eventually fallen off. So that would be the only wear thing. But this thing, you can see there's some big scratches. I've been all over the desert in Utah, the mountains. This thing has been rattling around in the back of the Jeep on my overlanding trips, and it's been totally fine. Now, when you open up the fridge, there is this little blue LED light in here. It's a pro that there's a light. It's a con that I don't think it's actually very bright. It doesn't help you see in here very well, in my opinion. I don't think it would be hard to have a little bit brighter light or even have an additional light. which I think would be a nice feature to it. It just has this little tether here that holds this from putting too much pressure on the hinges. I've never had problems with that, but I would not want to put any amount of pressure on this. I think you would run into some problems and probably break some things. It's not been an issue, but just something to be aware of. Inside comes with a basket. This is a con in my opinion, not that there's a basket, but it is not super smooth to come out. So this is handy that you can remove this separator, and then you can fill this up inside the kitchen or your fridge and then put it inside if you want. I think that's nice. It does take up more space. So I know some people actually get rid of these and it increases your space by 10% or something like that in there. So that's something to keep in mind. I think it's handy to do it this way, so I usually do. Just wish it slid down in there a little bit better. You kind of have to, you see, kind of have to finagle it to get it out. But it is something I only take in and out once. I can take it out, go fill it up, put it back in, so it's not a huge issue. This upper compartment up here is a con to me. If you put drinks in here, and I'll show you, but if you're putting drinks, this should be a teeny bit wider so you can just stack 2 sodas next to each other in there. You cannot, so you have to offset them, and it is not an efficient use of that space in my opinion. Bad design. I would make that just a little bit deeper. It's nice having this shallower one, and it is nice to put drinks up there or things that you don't want to get crushed, if there's stuff that you don't want to put down inside of here. But I think it needs to be a little bit wider in my opinion. I really like to keep my reviews on like the practical side of using something. And from a practicality standpoint, to me, I always look at value for money. Like, am I getting good value for a good amount of money, and am I going to be pleased with that long term? That's where I feel like this hits really, really strong. I think it's a great value for money. I would tell you to consider checking out some of the set power fridges. My understanding is that they use all of the same components. I actually have one that is just a little bit larger than this. Now that our family's getting a little bit bigger, we want something a little bit bigger, and it has hard like aluminum sides to it, which I like, which aren't going to get scratched and stuff like that. I have been liking that one slightly better, but it is very similar, and there are some things about it that I don't like as much. I have a review on it if you want to check it out. Now, one thing that I have noticed with the ICECO, this would be the main downside. I found that the temperature fluctuates a little bit more than I would like it to. Now, it's never a lot, but I noticed that it'll fluctuate between 1 and like 4 degrees. And I don't really know why, frankly. Like I thought maybe it was like, oh, it's just really hot, so it's having a hard time keeping up with it. But I've had times where it fluctuates more anyways. So I don't really know why that is the case. But that is something to think about. I also don't like where the display is here on the back. The reasoning is typically because your cords and stuff go in back here, you're going to put this in the vehicle like this, and it's going to come out to the back of the vehicle on the slide, which means to see this, it's a little bit hard if it's all the way back into the vehicle. It's butted up against your rear seats. I wish that there was a display somewhere else. Now, I believe the new models do have a Bluetooth setup that you can set up with your phone. Mine doesn't have that. So maybe that alleviates it, and you can just check the temperature on your phone. But I usually, when I get to camp, I usually just like to make sure, like, check the temperature, make sure that it's still good when I'm unplugging everything, so that I'm, know that the food is nice and safe. And I just wish that it was a little bit easier to see that. Like, I have to either fold the seat down to check it out, or I have to pull it all the way out. And just the way that my rear setup is, it's a little bit hard to see it. I wish there was a front display or something like that. I found that to be pretty common amongst these less expensive fridges. I have the same complaint about my set power fridge. I don't like where the display is at. So the controls here, all really easy, nice touch buttons, nothing really too fancy to talk about with that. When you purchase this, it will come with a box full of a bunch of cords that's just inside of the fridge, and that's just going to give you different options. Plug into the power outlet in your house, plug into a 12-volt system like this, and a few others. Nothing super complex or interesting there, but just keep in mind that you are going to have a few options. I know that sometimes when it's real hot, I'll actually plug it into the house before, so I'm not using any power out of this. And I'll cool it down, then I'll put the food in, and maybe like the next morning if I'm leaving on my adventure, then all I'll do is just carry the whole thing, put it in the back of the rig, and then plug it into my jackery. So overall, I'm really happy with this. I definitely can recommend it. I do wish that the temperature was a little bit more stable, but I've never had it fail or anything like that. Now, one thing that some people are curious about with fridges is how loud the compressor is. I always think noise and things like that is like a very relative thing. I consider myself a light sleeper. I sleep in the rig at least 50% of the time on my adventures. I do hear it turn off and on at night. Every once in a while it will wake me up. But most of the time it just kind of blends into the noise of like crickets and different things like that. And it's not something that I've ever been put off by. But that is something that you may want to consider. Now, how that compares to other fridges, I just don't know. My assumption is that any fridge using this compressor is going to be in a very similar decibel range. Maybe if you're in some of the higher end fridges that have a little bit, more insulation components, maybe it's a tiny bit quieter, but it's not going to be tons quieter because you have to have these vents on the sides. I just think the noise level is what it is. Overall, this thing's held up well. It's been jostled around in the back of my rigs on thousands and thousands of trail miles. I've had 0 failures. I consider myself someone who takes care of what I have, but I am not a meticulous owner of things. Meaning, you saw scratches on here that, a lot of people would be really bothered by. I haven't thought twice about. It gets rattled around. I haven't really done anything. I've wiped it off once or twice over the couple of years that I've had it after like a really dusty trip when I'm just wiping off all of my stuff, but it's never been like thoroughly like taken apart or cleaned or anything like that. I've had 0 issues. So who this is for and who it's not for. If you're someone who cares a ton about name brands, you just want to do the buy once cry once mentality, then this probably isn't for you. I'm not saying that I just think you're not going to be happy with it. I'm not saying it wouldn't live up to your expectations, but if you're someone who, like me, is practical and really wants to find a good value for money, I think that this fridge is a very good value for your money. It totally changes and transforms your experience camping. Just keeps your food nice and cool all the time. It gives you that peace of mind. You're not battling ice. You're not dumping it out mid-trip so that your food's not floating in the bottom of your cooler. In my opinion, it's fantastic. Overall, I really like this fridge. It's been fantastic. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I think you'll enjoy my adventure videos. You might want to check some of those out. Thanks for watching.